Hi folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery, and today we're going to be making a big rainbow flower. I have here the inspiration for this project, which is the Rainbow Quilling Papers pack from Quill Creations. The size is 1/8 inch wide. I'm going to be making this flower on my quilling comb, so I have my super looper here, and I like the tight teeth on this side, so that's what I'm going to be using. I have my Elmer's glue all in my needle nose container. I'm going to be using that for most of this project, but I do have some Aleene's tacky glue here because we're going to be making a 3D flower, so that is going to come in handy. Grab a work surface. If you have one, I like my cork board with parchment paper on top, held down by some pins. And this flower is going to be really big, so I'm not going to be molding it in my usual way. I have some jar lids here that are going to help make the dimension for this flower. So to start with, I have a little bit of each of the 6 colors from that rainbow pack and my quilling comb and my Elmer's glue. And I'm going to start from the purple end of the rainbow on my comb. And I only need a little bit for each petal, which is why this piece is so small. It's just a scrap from another petal. We're going to start off by holding a little bit of our strip in the back of the comb towards the bottom. It's about 2 teeth. I'm going to bring the tail up, hold everything in place, and wrap that tail back down so it overlaps what I started with on the back, and then add a small dot of glue just to keep this in place. Sometimes when I'm doing a quilling comb project, I don't use any glue for this step because the paper will hold itself. But since this is an exercise in using different colors on a quilling comb, a little bit extra glue is just going to come in handy. So after the glue, I wrapped around another tooth, and then I'm going to do a third, just like that. That's what you should be looking at this point. I'm going to tear off a little bit of the excess and then glue that in place. And that is our first color of our rainbow. And we're going to keep our paper on our quilling comb, and I have found that if you flip it the other way, adding the extra paper at this point, doing it upside down, seems to really help. This might be right side up for some people. I always quill from the bottom, but for this part now, we're quilling from the top. I'm going to add a little bit of my blue strip next. It is a good idea to have torn edges when you're adding them to this piece that's already on the quilling comb, because it's going to make it nice and smooth of a transition. You're not going to have a big lump every time. Bring it back down the back, around, adding a tooth every time. And I'm going to make sure that everything lines up nice and straight. Just keep wrapping. If you want to add extra glue, you can. But at this point, I'm not going to until I start and finish each color. That is my third tooth. Bring it back up to the top. Hold it down with my thumb. And rip off what's extra there. Just going to turn it this way so you can see a little bit more glue. And then lay that down nice and smooth. Again, just making sure everything lines up right on top of each other. The back is looking a little bit crooked, so let me just scooch that in place with my fingers. There we go. And we're going to keep going in the same pattern, adding in the next color of the rainbow every time, and doing 3 extra teeth every time until we get to the end of our rainbow. At this point, I've come to the end of the rainbow. I'm on the last tooth of the red section. There's all my colors in a little row there. I'm going to pull what's left of my red strip back up to the top and just tear off my extra, just like I did with the other colors, and add a little bit of glue. And make sure everything's still nice and straight. Get that set up at the top. It's not a bad idea when you get to the last color in your rainbow, if it's red in your case, just like mine, to add a little bit of glue at each pass, and that's really going to make sure that your petal stays together. You don't necessarily have to do it at every single turn when you get to the top, like I mentioned earlier, but I found that doing the last color really makes it stick nicely. Everything is now dry, and I'm going to just carefully scooch it to the end of my comb, and that is one of your petals for this flower. And I like to give it just a little bit more width, so I'm holding the bottom and just pushing on the point a little bit, about halfway down. You can do more if you want to, but I just kind of like that shape. And I have to make 6 of these for this flower, so they're all about the same size. And then I also have different layers to this flower, so I also made 6 of a medium size, and I made 3 little tiny ones. Now these are all going to have different numbers of loops for different colors, so I just made this little diagram here, and you can pause this or take a screenshot if you need to remember this, make a little note. But this big petal here is 3 loops of each color, and you need 6 of those. The medium-sized loop, I did 3 loops of the purple, the starting color, and then 2 loops of every other, and another 6 of those. And then for the smallest one, I did 2 loops of purple, 1 loop of blue, green, yellow, and orange, and 2 more loops of the red, and making 3 of those. And again, that's just to get the exact size on the exact tool that I used. Your results may vary if you have a different quilling comb or you're using a different number of colors, whatever the case might be. Again, this is really an exercise in using different colored strips on your quilling comb at the same time. So now we're going to start putting our flower together. I have my 6 large petals here. That's going to be the base. And get everything sort of in a row here. And then I'm going to grab my glue. For this part, we're using tacky glue. And if you've seen any of my videos before where I make 3D flowers, I like to use tacky glue because when I am molding flowers, it holds the petals together, but gives some wiggle room so that you can get your flowers in a mold and get that nice 3-dimensional sort of cupped look, and everything will still stay together. So I'm just putting a little bit of glue towards the end of each of these petals where they all meet each other. And then just making sure I like the way it's sitting. Get everything nicely pointed and spaced the way I want it. There we go. Now I'm going to let that sit for a few minutes just until the glue starts setting, but not until it's totally dry. We're going to be moving it from our workboard here and putting it into this little jar lid. And if we push down the center, we'll get that nice molded effect, but our petals will still stay together. And then I like to just put something on top just to make sure it's not bouncing right back up. We're going to leave that until it's totally dry. And then we're going to be able to move on to our next section, which is going to use the 6 medium-sized petals that we made. So for this, we are going to use tacky glue again. I'm not necessarily molding these this time, but the tacky glue is just going to make this project move a little bit quicker. And to do that, it's just a matter of putting a little bit of glue towards the bottom and then just placing each of the medium-sized petals in between the large petals. Now, if you wanted to, you can definitely have this layer stand up a little bit more. You can hold them for a few seconds as they stand up. You can kind of make a little pin system if you'd like to. If you are feeling really ambitious, you could 3D mold these in the same way that I did the first layer to make a cup. The only thing I would say about that is it might be hard to have them line up exactly the way you want them in between every petal like this. If you're doing a straight mold in the way that we did the first layer, I would just be afraid that I wouldn't get exactly the right spacing. So completely up to you. I have another version of this flower that I did using pins to keep everything kind of standing up a little bit more in the second layer. Both results looked great. You can see that I have another example I'll show at the end of this video of a different color of paper, and that one I used the pins to have it stand up a little bit. But for this one, just to make this video go a little bit faster, I'm just having them lay down. Get everything spaced. There we go. Now you are welcome to stop there if you like. You can just do a standard center of a flower, just like a tight dome or something like that. But we're going to go ahead and use those 3 little tiny petals that we made and have them kind of standing up straight out of the center as a third layer of petals. And kind of making these sort of shingling around each other, not completely. I added a little bit of the tacky glue on one side of one of the smaller ones and just kind of put the second petal at a slight angle on top. I just really want these all to be touching at the bottom, almost like a triangle shape. And now I'm going to add some more glue and put on the third petal. And I might have to hold these for a few minutes until it sets, and then I can kind of move them around and get the exact shape that I want. Or you can use pins on your board and set up some sort of system to get them to stay. I did find that after I let it set for a couple of minutes, I could flip it upside down and have it stand on its own, and that finished the drying process. So I didn't have to hold it for too long. That is, there you go. That's it standing on its little self there. And now it's just a matter of placing this in the center of our flower. You can use whatever glue you like for this. I'm going to go ahead and just grab some tacky glue again, just to get it to stay a little bit faster for the sake of the video. Just a matter of a little bit of glue on the underside, not right in the center because there is still that gap there, but around the edges here, underneath, and then I'm just going to place it right on top, whatever direction I think works best. And that is about it for this flower. This is not obviously a very realistic flower. Like I said before, this is just for great practice in using different colored quilling strips on a comb at the same time. I just think it's fun. I like rainbows a lot, so I tend to use them pretty often. There you are from the top, and there you are from the side. And I have another one here. I mentioned making some other ones earlier. This is a rainbow, kind of a pearlized pack. I'm not a huge fan of the pearlized paper. They're very thick and they're a bit harder to use, harder to glue. I'm not a fan. If anybody really enjoys using this type of paper and have some tricks for it, please by all means leave those in the comments. I know everybody would love to hear some new ideas if you have something for that pearlized paper. It's just tricky for me. But there we go. I just like this project a lot. It's just fun and silly and bright and just a good summertime project. As always, if you have any questions, please leave those in the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you're a fan of using the quilling comb like I am, I'll leave a link to my playlist on those projects because I have quite a few. I use a quilling comb a lot. I'll also leave links to all the supplies I used so you can pick those up if you're interested. I'll leave that in the description box as well, in addition to a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can find some freebies, find an extra video, and leave a little bit of extra support if you choose. That is always very appreciated and helps the channel keep growing. So thank you very much for that. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can be around for my next video, and I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.